with a smile. As I stand before you with my head held high, I too have known the feeling of fear, my favorite question being why. Words of the wise, the wind falls and howls. The past has happened, we have the presence of did and know the future is coming now. What is happening with us now? We have changed and we are changing. The world rearranging. So all the people across the world, I bring a message to you as true as the sun. Welcome to the revolution. I'm doing great, and I can't wait. I'm on a vision mission. They wanted what? They can have it. They only wanna make me alive. I don't want no piece of the pie. I really don't need my own plane in the sky. A butterfly, pretty as can be, like a spider. You don't want it with me. Earthquakes, lightning, and southern tornadoes. That wind in my face as the northern air blows. Doctors and back alleys and air raids that don't stop. Hunted like animals, chased by the cops. In sweatshops and conquering cages. I know your sincere hopes. I've read your back pages. Craving for connection feels like no one's left but you. And now you ask yourself, where is the new? You got the wizard, you wanna see his face, that's how it's calling. Nipping in the haze like the lizards. As I stand before you, as I stand before you with my head held high, I too have known the feeling of fear, my favorite question being why. Words of the wise, the wind falls and howls. The past has happened, we have the presence of did and know the future is coming now. What is happening with us now? We have changed and we are changing. The world rearranging. So all the people across the world, I bring a message to you as true as the sun. Welcome to
Venga, 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 canijos, ya estamos de regreso aquí en el show de Don Diablo desde Los Ángeles, Califastlán. Venga, G, échale música para de fondo porque me escucho bien culero, güey. Eso, G, gracias, canijos. Estamos aquí desde Los Ángeles, California, exactamente en el mismísimo infierno de Southgate, canijos. Y hoy tenemos invitados de lujo. ¿Qué onda, David? ¿Cómo estás, canijo? Ah, no tienes micrófono tú tampoco. Bueno, tenemos acá a mi compadre David en las consolas. A Piero, ¿qué onda, Piero? ¿Cómo andas, brother? Saluditos.
Bien, todo bien, gracias.
¿Qué tal? Acércate lo más que puedas al micrófono para poder escucharte. Chingoncísimo por acompañarnos, canijo. Chingón. Y por acá tenemos a Dr. G. ¿Qué onda, Dr. G?
Presente.
¿Qué onda, brother? ¿Cómo estás, G?
Pues ahorita, como se dice, no, calentándome, todo bien, todo bien.
Eso, chinga. Así es. Y tenemos por acá a nuestros compadres desde Nueva York, a Outernational. ¿Qué onda? ¿Cómo están? Se acercan lo más que puedan al micrófono. G, me haces el favor con el de eso, chinga. Vamos. Con la traducción, con mis compadritos, lo más que puedan al micrófono.
Dijo yay y en inglés, en español es igual yay.
Es en que sí, es yay, que sí. Bienvenidos, amigos. Welcome to hell. Welcome to hell.
Muchísimas gracias.
No, gracias a ustedes.
Estar con ustedes hoy, con la familia Chenchebrinches, and Outernational's in the house. We're here. This is Miles Soleil. We have Jesse Williams, and we have Rick Smith. What's up? So we're Y bueno, entonces seguimos, hablaremos en Spanglish.
I was gonna say, but the whole interview has to be in Spanish from
No,
everybody.
Spanglish.
No, just Spanish.
¿Español?
Straight-
Okay.
yeah,
No,
Muy bien.
Muy bien.
no, bro, it's
Bilingual.
it's bilingual.
Yeah.
We'll be bilingual. Yeah, of course.
La verdad es sí, para mí está bien, estoy listo a comunicar.
Dr. G, ¿cómo está? ¿Todo bien? ¿Cómo está bien?
Compañeros,
Eso,
No
chido.
sé si puede.
Yeah, just mouth.
Oh,
yeah.
perdón.
Perfect.
Check 1, 2.
Yes,
Come on, you're the singer, dude.
I
You're the
know,
front
man. I know.
He's
Microphone
excited to be
technique.
Here, right?
I'm very excited to be here. I'm glad to be here in Los Angeles again. You know, our band, Outernational, we have not been in LA, you know, hace casi 7 años. El último show de Outernational en Los Angeles y esta semana volvemos a esta ciudad importante en la historia de cultura y rock and roll y más y tocaremos este sábado en
The Paramount.
The Paramount.
Legendary.
Legendary.
The punk scene for East LA,
Yes.
there is a house. That's
Yes.
one of the houses from the original punk scene of like the La Gente, La Raza was in that venue. You know, it's got a lot of history. There's a lot of history in that venue, and it's a gorgeous venue you guys are going to. So
It's inspiring and been very interesting to learn about that. Yesterday I was in the Paramount just to check the joint
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Oh, with Piero, we went yesterday, and yeah, man, you got the pictures of Stevie Wonder,
Yeah.
all the punk bands, a lot of the Chicano music
Yeah.
that. You know, some of it I was familiar with, and a lot of it I wasn't familiar with. So I feel very fortunate to have been invited to play there.
Nice.
And let me, you know, we're gonna rock the house.
yeah.
Perfecto. ¿Nos podrán decir su nombre cada uno, por favorcito? Si nos hacen el favor, you guys, su nombre, G, por favor, de cada uno.
Él se llama
Eso, G.
Yo, mi nombre es Miles.
Miles, how about you, bro?
Miles Solé, el cantante fundador. Este amigo es Rick Smith,
Rick.
Rick Smith.
That's me.
Welcome to hell,
de
bro.
Nueva York y Michigan. Teclado en Outernational, teclado,
Ok,
pero
ok.
también él es un gran baterista también.
Perfecto.
Jesse Williams, founder of Outernational, bajista, cantante, inspiración, dance man.
Eso. Bienvenidos,
Gracias.
canijos. Y bueno, estamos
Falta
aquí.
guitarrista y baterista también.
Sí, cierto, que nos cuenten un poco, G, de su invitado de lujo que traen, brother.
Pues sí. Oye, esa conexión. Let's ask about Outernational. Interesting that the word Outernational is not used often enough, and I think that's one of the purpose maybe in what you're trying to do on top of your music. We talk about international, but Outernational, that perspective really blows my mind. Give us an understanding of why that name and a little bit about the band.
Yeah,
Outernational.
great. Thank you for that question. I mean, Outernational, the idea of it was, well, first of all, just like musically, the music that we came up in, you know, I recognize genres and styles of music the same way I recognize, like, and I recognize genres, styles, and culture the same way that I view human beings. You know what I mean? People got different experiences, different stories, different histories, different languages and accents. But, you know, the primary identity is as human beings, as Homo sapiens, as our species. And so that's kind of just the way, like, the music that I grew up in. You know, Jesse and I are, you know, obviously had very different lives coming up. I know for you as well, like a lot of we listen to all types of stuff is kind of my point. And so just from an artistic and music standpoint, that's always been wrapped up in the DNA. I mean, of the band, we always wanted to have the energy, velocity, and power of rock and roll, but the different rhythms and the different styles, not even styles, the different rhythms and different colors, you know, try to the best we could and try to embody, you know, the depth of humanity. But then there's a deeper level to it of the internationalism, or as you said, the outer nationalism of Outernational, which is really, for sure, inspiring to people, but also really trying to provoke and challenge them. Particularly, you know, everyone is just so indoctrinated with, you know, just looking out not only for themselves, and just the rampant individualism, but also like, you know, just like my family or my identity or my country or my city or like, you know what always, like,
You
can't be started.
Do it.
How long is this podcast?
Just go for it.
How long is this podcast?
I got more questions, so go for it.
I'm gonna tell you something that always bugged me out.
I just
And
love
I'm,
because
and
I know
I
that he's
know
about
I'm
to go
gonna
for it.
open a can of worms with this one.
I already know that. Go ahead.
Like the whole thing around like the home team in sports. You know, like you like a sport.
The tribalism.
You guys like a sport. Like, and people have a team. And I'm not necessarily by definition against, you know, you like this team or you like that. But the whole notion that people, oh, this is my team. And it's my team. But why is it your team? Because it's where I'm from. But like, what about over there? Maybe you like the values or the energy or the, and so just that mindset of just like the me and my people, you know, at the expense of like, you know, everyone else. And I feel that that's something that we really trying to, you know, go up against. You know, I mean, the first song we ever wrote, Que Queremos, you know, which is the last song on the Todos Somos Ilegales album. The chorus, Que tenemos nada, que queremos todo el mundo. And just to be clear, when we say todo, we're not talking about, you know, money, cars, whatever. We're talking about, you know, the higher aspirations of humanity to actually, you know, be able to appreciate all of humanity and not live in this situation where people are just suffering and destroyed every freaking day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What was the question?
That was the answer.
That was the answer.
That was the answer.
Lo bueno es que esa era la respuesta.
Yeah. No, es que that you're explaining who Outernational is.
Yeah.
You know, and that speaks volume to the purpose
Right.
of who you are, who you guys are, and who the music becomes. Right.
Well, if I can add to that,
Yeah.
you were born in the middle of a political storm, which your first concert in 2004. I know you don't count 2004 as the actual beginning of the band, but 2004 was the first concert of Outernational, and it was at the RNC in New York. So to play in the street and play a protest, that was telling the world this is who we are and this is what we do. So if you
He's
want to.
hired.
There you go.
That was good.
Y ahora lo digo todo en español. A ver.
Pero
Oh, it's true.
Piro y
Not to make a joke, but it's true. You know, we I mean, and then even in the larger sort of when Outernational, it's really weird because I'm still 25. So like the fact that we've been together for 20 years and I'm still 25 is so weird.
I was trying to do the math. But
Yeah.
But what's you know, the
Musicians
that
never
moment,
age.
It wasn't just that those first shows were like protest shows, which I'm glad that we were there. But it's also like that moment that was going on, sort of the turn of the century, and you know, me personally, the death of Joe Strummer from The Clash, whom we actually had the opportunity to meet on his last ever night in New York City. And we were like hobby musicians at the time, but we went to talk to him, just sort of, it was like New York after September 11th, you know, United States was just decimating Afghanistan and Iraq. And I remember meeting Joe Strummer and trying to talk to him about him, put him onto bands that I was listening to, books and whatever. And I remember just at the end of the night at a bar, like he was just talking to everybody because he was that type of guy, you know. It's not like I knew him. But I just remember at the end of the night, he was like, start a fucking band, you know, like really just like loud and passionate. And I just always felt a void of this music and message, you know, of what Outernational, ain't nobody else saying or bringing what we're bringing. And that's even coming from a place of lots of stuff that I enjoy and appreciate out there of art. You know, it's not a knock to anybody, but I feel like, you know, and what sets Outernational apart, to be honest with you, man, is like, we're as against this system of capitalism and imperialism as, I mean, I see it to its root and foundation. But I feel like this music of Outernational, including this new record, Welcome to the Revolution, this is a message of hope, you know, which hope for the future and the possibility and potential for humanity that we don't have to live like this anymore. And I feel like that's really that's in a lot of the songs. And so we do have a lot of, you know, even the songs that Jesse's written the lyrics to, like on our record, Hi-Fi Sunrise, It Didn't Get Better. You know, we draw a lot of blood, figuratively speaking, from just the cruelty and viciousness of this system. But, you know, I think it's really important that people see the hope for a different way for humanity, especially right now when so many people, including so many people that should have that hope, and I'm not talking about like false hope, like, hey, let's just like elect a black female president for the most violent empire in history or something like that. I'm talking about real hope that we, humanity, could live different from this. You know, I feel like a lot of people, I don't know how you guys feel, I feel like that's not out there. A lot of people are cynical, a lot of people are in their own niche. What are those things they put on the horses?
Blinders.
Yeah, they got the blinders on the side. Like, you know, we're trying to, our music's not an FU to people like that. But our music is like, let me help you let's take those blinders off. I know deep in your heart you want to see something different. Let's do this, you know?
Yep. Pandilla, estamos aquí con nuestros compadres de Outernational desde Nueva York, canijos, para la gente que nos está viendo en México a través de las siguientes plataformas digitales, se los agradecemos muchísimo. Muchas gracias por dejarnos entrar en sus pantallas, canijo. Un saludo a toda la gente de Unión Latinoamérica Ska, un saludo también a toda la gente de Colectivo Melomanía, a la gente que nos está viendo a través de YouTube, canijos, en el canal de Don Diablo TV, donde nadie nos pinche ve, y claro, aquí también en las plataformas de Diablovisión. Gracias a Dr. G por acompañarnos, brother, que también estamos en su plataforma en mi vecindad, canijos. Ya saben, al G lo pueden escuchar todos los jueves a las 8G a través de mi vecindad. Gracias a David Debe, que chingón que nos está acompañando, y Piero por acá, canijo. Muchísimas gracias, bro. Oye, ¿y cómo los conoces tú? Platícanos tu historia.
Como les dije recién, que los conocí en el 2004 en las protestas de la Republican National Convention.
Órale.
Estaba en New York filmando un documental y que mi amigo dice, va a haber un concierto, vamos. Y justo veo, el primer grupo que veo,
Chingón.
Outernational. Y de ese momento siempre fuimos amigos. Y después otra vez, I'll say it in English too, but después otra vez nos pasaron años y en Los Ángeles había una protesta. Hay música, vamos a escuchar música. ¿Y quién me encuentro?
Otra vez.
Otra vez a Outernational en la protesta.
Yeah,
I was just
nice.
saying that I met you guys at a protest, in 2004. Fast forward a few years, I think it was 2012 at the May Day protest, and you guys were playing here in LA, and it's just kind of crazy that I met you at a protest, lost touch with you, and met you again at the protest where you were
Sure,
playing.
that was May Day 2012. I think that was March 2011.
You know what? It could have been. It was for sure. It was a May Day protest, but
You talking about the one where Tom was playing?
I don't know if Tom was.
Took that photo, sort of fisheye with us.
Yeah, with everybody in the band. Yeah, that was 2011.
Let me tell you something right now. So that was Saturday, March 26, 2011.
No, because I got. No, I'll tell you why. Because I got fired. I purposely got myself fired from the production company I was working. I was sick and tired of working that place.
All right.
And the following day, I went to the
You guys
protest.
could have let me go with my story.
Sorry, man. You're talking to a documentarian that dates need to be right.
I had a good story. I'll save it for later.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say in March of 2011, I do know Saturday, March 26, 2011. Wednesday, March 23rd, we left Brooklyn, New York City, piled all our equipment in a van, and drove straight without stopping. We came straight to Los Angeles. We went straight to Malibu, straight to Chad Smith's house to finish writing the record that we just released last week, which is the record you were just playing, Welcome to the Revolution. We drove straight. We stopped at a few places to just sleep for a couple hours when we drove out here. There was 3 of us in a van, and we stopped in downtown LA at some sort of union rally that this cat Tom was playing at, and we stopped there and we saw you and you took that photo. Or am I mixing it up?
You're mixing it up.
God.
That's the wrong.
When there's ever a doubt, just look over to your bass player and he's shaking his head like, no, bro, you're wrong.
Jesse is right about many things.
Yeah.
Anyways, here we are.
No, but that was an epic photo too, and that's the photo that also went around the world with you guys when you were playing. So yeah.
Oye, una pregunta.
But Tom for sure wasn't there.
¿Escuchan este programa en México?
Sí, ahorita mismo.
Entonces hablaremos en español.
Está bien.
Sí, bien. Sí, muy bien, perfecto. G, preguntas, brother, ¿cómo va?
Pues me encanta a lo que te refieres, ¿no? De la misión de Outernational. Y hablando de protestas, me gustó mucho tu interpretación de Electric Avenue.
Oh my God.
Because of the reason of the lyrics. O sea, la lírica de esa canción y de lo que estás hablando, de las protestas, ¿no? ¿Qué estaba pasando con los británicos en ese momento? No, y se ve que está pasando una y otra vez.
Sorry.
It's like cyclical, right? It's just happening over. So it's very current in many ways. Es muy actual de lo que está pasando. Y platícame, porque tu interpretación está muy buena con esa de Eddie Grant. Ajá.
Gracias por decir. Una cosa muy interesante, el escritor de esta canción, Eddie Grant, el músico y escritor de canciones. Este man tiene mucho, ¿cómo se dice? Contempt. Mucho contempt, hatred.
Angustia.
Mike, we all speak Spanish here. We can do it.
Contra este sistema de explotación. En la letra de Electric Avenue, deep in my heart, I abhor you. Y este man es hablando contra este sistema. En la situación de pobre, de capitalismo, es muy importante. Otra cosa interesante de Electric Avenue, yo, el cantante de Outernational, no cambio la letra. Pero hay gente que piense, oh Miles, cool version, man, en cambiarte la letra, ¿no? Es la letra original.
Yeah. De hecho, vi comentarios que estaban muy contentos con esa interpretación tuya de Electric Avenue.
Muchísimas gracias, qué bueno.
Y entonces me puse a pensar más de lo que es Outernational. ¿Qué es Outernational? Outernational tiene que ver mucho con lo que está pasando ahorita, ¿no? Lo que pasó en 2000, que fue el 21, la primera 2004 que lo conociste.
2004.
2012 y lo que está pasando ahorita, ¿no? Entonces, llévame un poquito a conocer esa misión tuya, ¿no? Porque en ver escuchar las diferentes canciones y pensar mucho en los temas de las canciones, me di cuenta que and we could go on a rabbit hole. Like I was like listening to your music and the theme of the song and even the titles of the song, and then just going on a rabbit hole. I'm realizing a couple things like where are you now, because your mission is so important, right? Through your music. And I think that's probably why Chad's doing what he's doing, because he realizes that in you, you know. And talking about a rabbit hole, y estoy hablando en español e inglés porque
sí. Dale.
Sometimes it totally, like, it's easier for me to interpret, but Woman on the Edge of Time. Okay, so I went on a rabbit hole, and this novel that Marge Piercy wrote, right? So and then she writes this, right, and how and why she wrote it. You know? So it's like pre-sci-fi, some like, current events at the time, right? And it's a novel. But and then she talks about philosophy, right? Then she talks about Plato, right? Then I start thinking about the Republic, the book. Then I start thinking about what you're doing. What did philosophers do in their time in order for them to get their point across?
Wow, this is
and that's why they call him the doctor.
Yeah, this is good.
So I went on a rabbit hole, but then I realized that that's who you are. You're why did they do that? Why are you doing this?
Yeah, well, I mean, philosophy is important. It's a lot of the ways that people, whether it's continental philosophy like Plato and some of the classics from that sort of predated but set the stage for the sort of the bourgeois capitalist, Aristotle and Plato and them. But in general, I mean, philosophy, I think there's a real benefit to philosophy. I mean, philosophy is a lot of how people try to interpret reality and the different theorems and epistemologies of reality. I mean, philosophy, one of the problems I find with philosophy, and I'm not not a serious student of philosophy, but one of the problems of philosophy, is that when philosophy gets untethered or unmoored, or a better way of saying disconnected, from reality, in other words, science, a real scientific understanding, because, our consciousness and ideas are part of reality. It actually is one of my favorite quotes from the revolutionary communist leader, Bob Avakian. He says, what people think is part of reality. but reality is not determined by what people think. You know, in other words, our consciousness is also matter. It's part of the universe. It exists. It objectively exists. But you know, it's, you know, and that's very different than what a lot of people say. Like, if you think about these days, what's something very popular? A lot of people say, you know, well, I'm going to manifest this. You know,
the universe has told me to do this.
Yeah.
So that's what I saw.
Yeah.
I saw you guys being those
Yeah.
philosophers, like you talking
Yeah.
to us, letting us know through your music.
I appreciate, and I don't mean this as a joke, I appreciate that you think of us as philosophers. I mean, to me, it's related to, but I feel that it's, and this connects back with what you talked about, bringing up Marge Piercy, the author who wrote Woman on the Edge of Time. But I mean, art, which is, you know, broadly defined, I mean, art is, I mean, the way I think about art is sort of creative manifestation of metaphor, you know, and I think that applies to whether it's instrumental music like jazz or classical, which you can't, it's not, oh, here's a lyric, this is what it's about, to, you know, impressionistic painting or, you know, poetry. And I think art, one of the powers of art that to me taps into that, like, really uniquely human, that really only our species does, is thinking about the future, thinking about the past, and then having ideas whose raw ingredients are reality, but isn't accountable to reality in the same way. What the fuck am I talking about? I guess what I mean is, like, you know, like in a sci-fi book or in a song, you can bend reality all kinds of ways. I mean, why is The Simpsons popular? You know, because, you know, if they weren't yellow, you know, if you weren't screwing with reality in that way and it just looked exactly the way human beings really looked and it wasn't a caricature, you know, it might be hard to interpret, but people can sort of suspend their disbelief, you know, and not to then be challenged to view things in another way. And I feel with Woman on the Edge of Time, which is the second track of our album, Welcome to the Revolution, I mean, the idea, I mean, the inspiration was we're rocking rock and roll, but I wanted to stand up against a lot of this patriarchy and misogyny and things that are just holding women down. And then in the song, I was trying to deal with, like, gender and, like, trying to imagine, like, what if gender, not really sex, but, like, what if gender wasn't really this, like, because that's what it is in the book, Woman on the Edge of Time. There's this young Chicano woman who gets condemned to Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital, and they give her all the medication, and then she wakes up in the future, and then she's seeing these people who, like, you know, have huge muscles but large breasts, mustache. Like, you can't tell if they're men or women. They're just humans. And it's in that book, and a lot of that predates a lot of the gender, I don't know what you call it, the gender cert, you know, a lot of the stuff that people have done to express their gender identity. To, you know, it was kind of before a lot of the popularization and somewhat acceptance of trans people. And I really liked in that book that it was trying to challenge a lot of that shit, you know. And so that was what I was trying to deal with in that song. And I know I'm giving you long answers here, but that's what you get for asking good questions.
Para que andes
That's
de
what you
pinche
get for asking
preguntón,
good
Jay.
questions. That's what you get for asking good questions. You know?
We're here to understand who you are.
Yeah. Well, the other thing in that song,
And
now
your
that
music, because I think that's the message.
I
Your
appreciate
music.
that.
Yeah.
In the song, the narrator, who's kind of me but not really me, and I was trying to sing in my voice, and my voice doesn't sound like what you would think a woman's voice would be, but it was important to me to, in the song, as the narrator, to say, I'm a woman on the edge of time. I kind of wanted to screw with that. But in it, I also wanted to say something important. The narrator, who's kind of talking as if they were a woman, is like saying, it's sort of like a letter to the men, to the brothers, who are like, you know, who say that they want to see the world change, but are still holding on to all this, like, machismo and patriarchy shit. And that was an important thing to put in that song too. Instead of being like, you know, fuck you, you're canceled, you know, or whatever. It's like, come on, you're hanging on the edge here. You want to go down with this system, or do you want to, you know? And I wasn't really thinking about cancel culture and all that shit when I wrote those lyrics 13 years ago. But the more I think about it, like, it is true. This is about transformation. This is about transformation and change, and something that we all can do.
Perfecto.
This is a great
Yeah.
discussion. I'm so happy to have been invited here.
I'm going to add on more to the philosopher part of things.
Guys, you can jump in if you want at any time.
Anytime.
I'm going to add on to the philosopher part as well, is that not only, Doctor, like you hit the nail on the head with calling them the philosophers, but at the same time, you've been passed, the torch has been passed down to you guys by the other philosophers, our modern philosophers. Joe Strummer said, dude, start your fucking band.
There you go.
And then we have a mutual friend with Tom Morello, who also not only has, like, you've done so much with, not only has he produced one of your albums, but at the same time he's been kind of that, and even with Rage Against the Machine, YouTube has the what's the word, when you were at, oh my god, no me acuerdo.
Was it Rock the Bell?
No, MTV, that you were outside and stuff like that. But that was the moment, like, you had bands like Rage Against the Machine saying, here you go, keep going. And you obviously were in a band at that time. And then again, you have someone like Chad Smith seeing what you're doing and going off and doing that. So we've always had this conversation privately about that stuff like that it's like, how is, it's great to have these artists, the ones that we've looked up to, that have become friends, and then passing down the torch. So you're this generation's, Woody Guthrie. You're this generation's what I would call you a Bob Dylan, but Bob says that he's not a I forgot what he calls himself.
Hey,
but
that was another great song.
Yeah. When the ship comes in.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about that. See, now you're stimulating me because.
G, ¿podrás poner música de fondo, porfa? Para que la gente que nos esté escuchando, la gente que nos está viendo, para la pandilla que nos va a ver.
Pon una ranchera, güey.
Durante la semana, vean, escuchen de la banda con quien estamos hablando ahorita mismo, Outernational, una banda de Nueva York, canijos. Vamos a poner un poquito de música para que escuchen con quién estamos cotorreando. Poquito, G, porque ya sabes que Facebook nos tumba la pinche.
Órale,
y más al ratito hablamos del disco que acaban de sacar y lo están lanzando, canijos. Algo nuevo de Outernational. Pon el logo, brother, mientras eso chinga. 30 segunditos.
Show número 1 de Los Ángeles, Califastlán. 50,000 watts de potencia. Desde los estudios de la banda Elástica Radio. El show más cochino y lépero del barrio. El show de Don Diablo.
Ya, perfecto. Ya estamos de regreso, canijos, con Outernational aquí en el show de Don Diablo desde Los Ángeles, California. Y bueno, hoy decidimos abrir el infierno, G, porque regularmente hacemos los shows los domingos, pero hoy no nos podíamos perder esta oportunidad de tener estos grandes músicos desde Nueva York aquí en el infierno, aquí en el mismísimo infierno del show de Don Diablo, bajo Diablo Visión. Y la plática se está poniendo súper interesante, pero les recomendamos que la banda va a estar tocando el próximo sábado en The Paramount, canijos. Aún hay boletos, se va a poner mamalón, se va a poner chingoncísimo, porque la banda viene con todo. Y más al ratito vamos a platicar de eso, porque traen el invitadazo especial, el invitado de lujo en la batería. Pero aún hay boletos, canijos, vayan y cómprenlos, búsquenlos por ahí como Outernational para que vean dónde están los boletos a la venta. Compren sus boletos, canijos, esto en The Paramount, ahí en East LA, si no me equivoco, aquí por la Soto y la César Chávez. César Chávez hizo más o menos por ahí, ¿no? Si no me equivoco. César Chávez en
Hola, César Chávez, ya.
Da Paramount, canijos. Aparte abajo tiene un restaurante poca madre, pizza sabrosa. Entonces se pueden ir a echar su cervecita ahí abajo y después disfrutar del conciertazo de nuestros amigos de Outernational. Cabrones, una banda de Nueva York. Aún hay boletos, búsquenlos. Se va a poner bueno el concierto este sábado que viene. G,
oye, si el invitado de lujo es el Don Diablo, el baterista Don Diablo de Chincha Berrinches.
Bueno fuera, güey. No, ¿cuál pinche G? No mames. Un día me van a invitar, vas a ver.
¿Y quién es el invitado especial?
Que ellos nos digan, bro, digan.
Yo creo son los Tucanes de Tijuana.
¿Qué batacazo traen?
A ver, ¿quién es el invitado de lujo? Who's your invited guest? Musician.
I mean, well, one of them we publicized, Chad Smith.
Chad Smith.
And, you know, he's...
From what band?
Chad Smith is the drummer for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and he's an incredible drummer. And we should also mention that this record, Welcome to the Revolution, that we just released, and we're talking about, we wrote it with Chad as like in the band. So we co-wrote all the songs together with him in a room like this size, you know, and he played drums on the whole record. And now that we're releasing it, we're playing a couple release shows. So that's a pretty special, artistically and musically. I think people are very familiar with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but also as a drummer, and particularly as a rock and roll drummer, Chad is really, I mean, he's one of my favorites, and I think he's
one of my favorite drummers of all time as well. As primarily being a drummer, I've looked up to his drumming for many, many years. Like, I have an old VHS instructional video of his from when I was a kid. Like, so to get to play with him is a really big deal for me, personally and professionally.
But the real question is, did you bring it to get it signed?
It's long gone. That VHS tape is long gone.
Nice.
They're coming
so
back.
we're gonna have we're gonna have a couple other special guests there. I mean, some of the special guests we're gonna have at this show, there's a sentimental connection. You know, people who are very close to the heart, and there's gonna be one or two surprises there. And then honestly, there's 3 more days between now and then. So who the hell knows what's gonna happen? Maybe we can make some more things happen.
Exactly.
The most special guest of all we have right here is Jesse Williams.
Jesse in the house. On the Jesse.
And don't let the fact that I've been doing all the talking for this man here is in a lot of ways the heart and soul of Outernational's music. Nice. He plays the bass, is the bass player for Outernational and songwriter on all the songs as well. And so we're really excited to, we never stopped Outernational. But, at this moment, releasing this record is un renacimiento de nuevo. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a rebirth, estamos siguiendo en una manera con más fuerza.
Exacto.
¿Quieres hablar del viernes o no? Do you want to talk about Friday or no?
What's Friday?
Friday.
Oh, actually, yes. What he's talking about.
Cabrón, I'm your PR, your manager. ¿Qué más, cabrón?
Listen, I don't know who the hell is listening here, but I'll tell you what Piero is talking about is last week in New York City, we took a truck and we just drove out into the streets, set up the band on the back of the truck, and just rocked out.
For like 3 hours while driving through New York City traffic,
nice.
People waving, old ladies flipping us off. Yeah. It was incredible.
Nice.
It was a very special experience, and we want to do that in Los Angeles, but we don't. Truth be told, we don't really know people out here, and so we got about 48 hours to do
it out.
And to figure it out. If anybody has a truck or a sound system. With Chad, we did it with Chad in New York.
Oh, nice.
We want to do it here, and
yeah.
Actually, it was his idea. Yeah. When I was talking to him 5 months ago, so we're gonna finally release this record because it's been a whole saga of trying to release this album over years. And I said, hey man, do you want to play some release shows? Because we played a few shows with Chad last year in South America, in Chile, in Argentina, and I said, do you want to play release shows? He said, yeah, of course. So we just got to figure out the time. And I said, well, what kind of club? Like, where? Like, because we're still, And he was like, man, I think we should do it on a truck.
Nice.
He said, he was like, we should do it on a truck. That feels very Outernational to me.
Yep.
So I'll be the hype man. I'll be the Flavor Flav to Outernational. I'm better looking, but let's just say that it's either Melrose, MacArthur Park, or somewhere in
Are we
downtown.
in the planning meeting?
Yeah, we're in the planning meeting right now. But you know, hey, donde está la gente, ahí van a estar Outernational.
Bro, right here on Tweety Boulevard.
La Tweety, okay. Sí, pero a ver que la policía aquí en Southgate y Huntington Park son bien culeros.
Yep. Get ready for that.
Bird helicopter.
Yeah, it's totally fine.
Nah, you'll be on
Yeah, so we
you'll
want
be
to
on
do
the
that. I mean,
news, bro.
I want to do a lot more stuff like that too. To be honest with you, I mean, first of all, we're making art, we're making rock and roll. I want to play festivals, I want to play nightclubs. You know, and not only because you got to make a living doing this, but also the music is created to be presented in that kind of way.
Exactly.
You know, however, I also, you know, the planet is on fire right now. And I also want to fucking, like, I want to go down to the border. I want to go to the, here's another thing I want to go to the border. The problem is we're not famous yet. And this idea I have would be better if you were famous. But, like, I want to go to the border and, like, have one stage, but it's, like, kind of like on both sides.
No, okay, half and
But,
half.
like, we play on the Mexican side, and people want to come see us, but they have to illegally cross into Mexico to see us. Yeah. And then there's like another band, but the people have to cross over to see them. Like, so it's just this whole, just like we're at the border. Like, I want to do
Tijuana, no, or something.
Well,
the ocean side, and the ocean.
Right.
Yeah, but I was gonna say that there's,
right there.
I don't know if they still have it. Our friend over here can.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you get all the kids from the U.S.
No,
got to illegally cross into Mexico to get into the show.
So there's something similar that there's no crossing, but it's el encuentro jaranero.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing where cats who play son jarocho on the Mexican side will meet at the wall, and people from the U.S. will meet at the wall, and they'll have a fandango playing back and forth.
Arturo Alfaro.
Yeah.
Arturo Alfaro.
Yeah.
Afro-Latin jazz orchestra in New York did that.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I'm like, something similar would be that. But wasn't there? Dude, you keep on saying stuff like that, and I'm like, the wheels start turning.
Yeah,
Like,
maybe you should be the manager.
Maybe you're having a planning
maybe
meeting
you
right
should
now.
be the manager. I knew we came to LA.
you know,
Hay un lugar.
I'm working on an exhibition, on a documentary. I'm like, I don't know if I could fit that in.
Documentary. People make documentaries for 20 years. There comes a point where you gotta just cut it.
Nah, we're doing lightning speed, man.
Ya escuchaste, bro, ya escuchaste. Tienes que ser el manager de Outernational. Hay un lugar en Arizona, no sé si Arizona, bro, o en Texas, donde abren la frontera un rato. Claro, está la patrulla viéndolos, pero abren un rato para que la gente se una. La gente que no se ha visto por años, familias que están de este lado, que no pueden cruzar para allá y los de allá para acá.
Es aquí, ¿no?
Creo, no sé si es Texas, bro.
También. Pero en Texas, la frontera parece que sigue de largo, caminas, no 100 metros y ya no hay.
O te hundes o te vas al desierto.
Por eso.
I want to do, when we released our Todos Somos Ilegales album in 2012, basically, we got in a van and we just drove all along the border for a year. I mean, basically on and off for like a year or 2 years, playing a lot in Texas and a lot in California.
Let me ask you about that. That album.
Yes.
There's theme songs. So is it because of the album was meant to be theatrical? Was it meant to be produced on stage? Like a soundtrack for it,
You're almost a mind reader. You're almost a mind reader with these
He's a
questions.
doctor.
Yeah.
Outernational on Broadway. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I really appreciate how deep you just dove into the music and the art. So that album, absolutely, it has 18 tracks but 12 songs, and there's a bunch of interludes. We scored it as if it were a film. The idea was as a film. I mean, first of all, I'm really good at stories, but not short stories, so I'll try to compress it a little bit. But originally, that was going to be an EP of 5 songs. And there was going to be Across the Borderline, which is the Ry Cooder song from the movie The Border that Freddie Fender sang in 1980, that we sampled the man I quoted before, Bob Avakian, revolutionary leader, singing that. So that was one song. Then another song was Deportees with Tom Morello, the Woody Guthrie song. Then another song was the singer Ceci Bastida, originally from Tijuana. No, we did like a collaboration with her called Canta El Rio.
You have Bob in one of your songs.
Yes, this is the one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
This is the one. And then we had the first song that we wrote. Jesse wrote the chorus, Que Queremos. And then I had an idea for a song called We Are All Illegals that at the time I wanted this rap artist who I had just discovered, Residente, Rene from Calle 13. So originally that was going to be 5 songs. And Rene, it took like 9 months to get him on the track, only because he's so busy. He was extremely committed from the first moment he heard about it, but he's touring the world doing a million things. And in the time that we were, flew down to Mexico to find him, like we were, you know, that record took a year to pull together. And in that time, I went to Mexico to record Rene. And we didn't record him. It was just artistically complicated, but he was extremely warm and generous and very committed. And then I was leaving Mexico City in the airplane. And you know, Mexico City, like a lot of the global south or third world, they have these mega cities. You know, like 25% of Mexicans who are in Mexico live in Mexico City. People can't survive in the countryside, and they're forced. And so what you have is you have these mega cities where you got the city, and it's just surrounded by slums. And when you leave, I don't know if you've ever been on an airplane leaving Mexico City. When you leave a city, it's like, what, 60 seconds before you're out of the city? Mexico City, you're like still in Mexico City for like a minute or two, because there's miles and miles of slums of millions of people. And I got to say, at that moment when we were leaving Mexico, where we had this like really positive experience with Rene from Calle 13 at the time, but we didn't record the song, which is like why I spent my last $2,000 to get there. And then obviously being in an airplane with an American passport is different than crossing the desert, like our sisters and brothers, immigrants, are forced to do. But my mind was able to go there while we were going over the desert. And that's where I just started thinking about, fuck this, we should make like an album that's like one of these movies about the border, of which there's many. El Norte, Sin Nombre, Machete, the one that was about the feminicida in Juarez. There's like 10 or 15 of those, and that's where we got the idea to make that album as if it was a movie. So we score. So every song is kind of like it's not a singular narrative, but that every song is it's sort of a snapshot, I feel like, or a vignette, or a little picture and story. But to get back to your question, is that supposed to be on the stage? I'm actually in the process of developing that album into a musical in Bogota, Colombia. And I stopped doing that 4 or 5 months ago because a bunch of people said to me, that sounds great, but you're fucking nuts. You got to put out your Welcome to the Revolution album that you've been sitting on. So we're trying to adapt that into a musical, and I want to adapt it into a musical that can be put on a big production, but I also want to do it in a way that can like be like anybody can do it anywhere. You know what I mean? It's like you could also just do it at your school. You know what I mean? Like, like we have a way like where we have an orchestra of 30 musicians and 10 dancers, and in an interesting way, I've been sort of starting to develop it because with a lot of the videos that I've been doing in Colombia and the different ways that we've been trying to present the Outernational music in sort of like a South American folk kind of way.
I was listening to your music, your catalog, and interesting enough, I was with my daughter, and she loves Encanto. And Encanto is based on, Colombia. Right, and there's that connection, like you said, there was a connection. And it's like, wait a moment, this guy is also from Colombia. He's got and then I'm listening to the song from Chimes of Freedom 50. When the ship comes in, and I'm like, oh man, that totally reminds me of Bob Dylan, not knowing that it was Bob Dylan's song. No, seriously, it was one of those weird moments where I was like, again, I'm with my daughter. I have my music on one side. I'm trying to take care of her. She's watching a movie, and then I'm like, wow. But it's got that Celtic type feel to it, a little bit of that Irish, you know, flair and that flavor. And then I actually looked at it and I was like, holy shit, it is Bob Dylan. Yeah. You know, again, your interpretation is so well done, you know, but it also gives it a purpose of why you did it, why you were invited to be part of this. And I think that's why you're here.
Thank you. Well, that was very moving. That was very moving to hear. Thank you. I mean, when the ship comes in, I can't remember. Is that a Dylan's second record?
It was one of the one of the first. I think.
When the ship comes in, which is a metaphor. I mean, you take like, I mean, you know, any conversation of the best is always a weird endeavor in sports but I do feel that some of those early Bob Dylan songs, When the Ship Comes In, Chimes of Freedom, Desolation Row, Blowing in the Wind, are some of, okay, not the best, but there's some of the most powerful songs. And the places, the things he is, I mean, he was never a revolutionary or a communist or anything. But though, to me, the lyrics and When the Ship Comes In, and the sun will respect every face on the deck, the hour that the ship comes in, it's very, very radical to me in the true meaning of the word radical. Get to the root, and it's very hopeful in a positive way. And that means a lot that you listen to that. That's a very important.
Well, you know, Piero was talking about.
That song.
Oh, it's a beautiful. You did a great job.
Thank
you.
you
guys did a great job.
Thank you.
You know, he was talking about Guthrie, and then here I am, thinking about what you did with Bob Dylan's song, and so again, the purpose of Outernational.
I will also say, on the subject of drummers, one of the special things about the recording of that song, When the Ship Comes In, was Jim Keltner is the drummer on that recording, and Jim Keltner is
wow, really?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah, Jim Keltner is a very famous session drummer and was originally a jazz musician.
But on the Dylan recording, not.
No, on
the song.
Oh, really? Oh,
so we covered When the Ship Comes In as part of a compilation where like a few dozen artists covered Bob Dylan songs, and but the version that we did, the drummer who played on that session with us was Jim Keltner, and Jim Keltner was actually Dylan's drummer. It's also the drummer on Imagine, the greatest and my favorite song of all time. You know, John Lennon.
Of course,
and he played, Dylan, John Lennon. He was in the Traveling Wilburys. And that was a very interesting experience, too, because that was a real treat to play with someone who, like, really thinks like a jazz musician. I don't mean thinks like a jazz musician that he... But, I mean, the way Jim Keltner plays...
Compositionally.
Yes, he's... And, I mean, I remember actually just even talking to him and he was sharing Dylan stories, and actually he was sharing stories about the first time he went to the first time John Coltrane ever played in L.A.
Holy shit.
In like 1964 or 65. And so that was a very special experience, and I feel fortunate that we were able to cover a song as beautiful and inspiring as When the Ship Comes In. And thank you for saying that, man. You're a really deep cat. Seriously, you're
Dr. G.
He gave me a beer.
Pandilla, ya escucharon, canijos, a el sabadito, nuestros compadres de Outernational desde Nueva York en The Paramount, bro.
No, legendary.
Se va a poner bueno para que
vamos a ir al Paramount a ver a Outernational.
Vamos a tener que ir. Y para la gente que está aquí alrededor de Los Ángeles, por favorcito, busquen los boletos, canijos, porque se va a poner chingón, se va a poner mamalón la fiesta con nuestros compadres de Outernational, y aparte pues el invitadazo que traen al señor Son, al señorón Chad Smith de Red Hot Chili Peppers en la batería, que chingoncísimo. Entonces se va a poner bueno el cotorreo. Cáiganle, canijos, el sábado, ya en un par de días. Ya saben dónde, en The Paramount. Chingoncísimo. G, ¿cómo
vamos
andas,
a romper este sábado.
Vamos a romper. Eso,
seguro.
Chinga.
Mira, por último, danos más información de lo que va a pasar. A ver, el spokesperson, manager, to be, PR person.
Tiene que hablar con mi esposa primero.
Pero el viernes vamos a... ¿Cómo los buscamos para saber dónde van a estar el viernes?
Cierto.
No me mires a mí.
A ver, ¿cómo los buscamos para el viernes para que cuando anuncien vamos o estamos aquí presentándonos en la calle de MacArthur Park o estamos en downtown LA? ¿Cómo le hacemos?
Where do you think okay, we'll turn this into a meeting right now.
Yeah, go
Where
ahead.
is the best place?
Planning.
Because LA is not like New York.
Yeah.
In the sense of New York, there's a million people outside all the time everywhere. In LA, a lot of people, they're in their fucking cars. So where do you think, and because everything is 10 miles away, where do you think will be the best place to do it?
I have this vision. Me imagino que ustedes están en el downtown y hay una necesidad de traer al downtown en ciertas áreas un poquito de música, un poquito de alegría, un poquito de cultura.
Okay.
Lo hizo U2 hace muchísimos años en el rooftop en downtown LA.
Sí.
So, yo creo que downtown tiene mucho que ver
MacArthur Park, Pico,
por ahí
sí.
yendo. De hecho, de MacArthur se pueden ir a downtown LA. Entonces, it's a thought.
¿Qué tal Melrose? Perdón. Venice.
No,
It's too busy. I think.
y Venice no puedes entrar con.
Yeah. No, y luego en downtown LA
Y también la
les vale madre.
porque
Hay muchas cosas pasando en downtown LA.
La distancia de barrios en Los Ángeles es muy larga. Entonces no podemos comenzar en Hollywood y vamos por Pico y vamos por East LA. No, es
¿A dónde tiene
en un lado, ¿no? Solo.
su negocio?
¿Bolochos?
Yeah.
Ahí, downtown LA.
¿Pero dónde?
Estaba pensando en eso ahorita. Hablarle y preguntarle
el camión justo enfrente
que empiece ahí en el International House of Music.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah.
I'll talk to him.
Okay, well,
We're planning.
We're planning. This is a meeting.
These three phones have so many contacts.
Ya escucharon, canijos, igual se puede armar un cotorreo. Están planeando mis compadres usar una grúa y tocar en las calles, canijos. Entonces estén pendientes en sus redes sociales como Outernational. Ya en un par de días, el viernesitos, a ver si se arma y los pueden ver por las calles del centro de Los Ángeles.
Los social networks de ustedes, ¿cómo se?
Outernational.
Outernational en Instagram, Facebook. What are the other?
Spotify.
Okay.
Tenemos vinilos. Tenemos vinilos de dos cosas de este álbum. Bienvenidos a la Revolución. También Electric Avenue, un 7-inch. Electric Avenue y Last Class.
Y unos están firmados, ¿no? Con
Jesse.
Con Jesse y también Chad va a firmar unos y tú vas a firmar unos y tú vas a firmar unos.
Sí. He's asking if we're going to sign the records.
Yeah. Mira, por última, la última pregunta. A mí cuando escuché Welcome, the guitar, it was like Vai, it was like Satriani's, it was like, Blackmore, it was like so old school metal, but the purpose of bringing that energy out.
Are you talking about the Welcome song?
The Welcome song.
Album?
The
Yes.
Welcome song.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, the guitar is fantastic on the whole record. I mean, the 95% of the guitar was played by Leo Mintek, who we wrote the record with. He's not in the band anymore. But I find the reason why I asked that clarifying question is because if you were talking about the album, and the guitar playing is great on the whole thing, but that particular song is we were really trying to do that with the guitar. I wanted that 2-minute, 3-4 part guitar solo to be like a journey that kind of started on the whatever, like the Sunset Strip, that sort of just like shredding, heavy hard rock metal thing. And then
it's like metal bachata.
Right, and then you go into like a little UFO, like you had all that energy in there, and it was like it makes you want to like really pay attention.
You hear all your guys' influence and even and all of it. Like you hear, like you said, Vai, Satriani, all these people, and then I keep on going back to Morello, but I'm like, you even hear that. You hear all these things that go with your guys' DNA.
Yeah, and actually the last part of the solo, I mean, there's like 3-4 guitar solos in a row. I don't know how you interpret it. For me, it's just kind of like one journey, but there's kind of 3-4 parts there. The first part, the shredding part, then it goes into like the bodega metal bachata part, and then it like goes.
I love that description so much.
And then it goes into, I don't know what kind of scales those are, but sort of a Mediterranean thing. The last part of the solo is actually Jesse playing it.
Nice.
Where it's in. To me, it's just very, I don't know. I I hear music, but I think like a lot of people, you kind of see it. I don't see it in colors, but I see it in kind of like movies. Like my brain makes like little scenes. You know what I mean? Like it exists here by the beach, or it exists in the jungle, or it exists in my house, or whatever. And that one, when those solos happen, it really just feels sort of like a
journey.
Yeah, like a journey.
Like that last part for me is probably one of my favorite parts of the entire show. Because as the keyboard player and organist, I get to double that guitar lead, which I don't get to do a lot. Usually as a keyboard player, I just hold notes for four beats, and then hold notes for 4 beats, and then hold some more notes for 4 beats. But I get to play that whole solo, and for me, that's a huge, really fun moment.
Yes.
That's that wonderful energy.
Thank you. And the other thing with that song is like it really was intended as a manifesto. You know, like I think it's very compelling artistically, but we chose to not have any repeating lyrics. There's no chorus. There's no, which is normally how we write. I mean, our music.
Except for na 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 na.
Except for the na na nas. Jesse still snuck in a lot of catchy stuff.
It became an anthem at that point.
Yeah, but you know, there's not a lot of there's no melody in the vocals at all. And actually, I remember writing that song on the PCH highway, man. We were just I mean, literally on the PCH, standing on the side of the road, just with the bass.
Nice.
Just, you know, I wanted to be that sort of militant atheist preacher. You know, just, as I stand before you. And I'll tell you one more thing about it is like the record is Welcome to the Revolution. And when I say revolution, goddamn it, we mean it. But also in a weird way, like it's the most personal music. That like the lyrics that and I didn't ever intended it that way, but like trust me, it took 13 years to put this record out, so I had a lot of time to reflect. Definitely more than is healthy. And
it happens a lot. We know a band called Tencha Berrinches. It took 15 years, so it's all right.
And so I was able to discover that some of the things that made it so important to me, but also so challenging, was just
13 years later, it's very current.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bueno, vamos a despedirnos. We're going to say goodbye. Thank you guys for being here. Absolutely wonderful.
Le tenemos que...
Muchísimas gracias, Don Diablo, Dr. G.
Incredible questions.
Yes.
Like, I've been a part of a lot of things like this. Didn't have much to say today, but your questions were all awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very deep.
Well,
thank you for the show. Everyone, come to the show.
Well, we have to do a promo for you guys about your bachata metal bodega band. So it has to be in español. Señoras y señores, si te gusta la bachata, si te gusta el metal, si te gusta las bodegas, ve a Outernational.
Eso, chido.
Yes.
Muchísimas gracias, canijos. Fue un placer conocerlos en persona. Un placer tenerlos aquí en el estudio, en el infierno de show de Don Diablo, en Diablo Visión. David, muchísimas gracias en los controles. Piero, muchas gracias, brother. Dr. G, gracias, brother, por la entrevista, brother. Siempre un placer tener a Dr. G acompañando aquí al show de Don Diablo. Siempre las preguntas bien chingonas, bien mamalón. Es que pinche G. Es el Dr. G, a huevo. Outernational.
Él sí hizo su tarea.
Muchísimas gracias, canijos. Un abrazo fuerte para ustedes y nos vemos el sábado. Ya escucharon, pandilla, busquen los boletos en The Paramount, se va a poner chingoncísimo. Vamos a ver esta bandota el sábado que viene. Gracias, canijos. Nos despedimos. Muchísimas gracias.
Corazón, muchísimas gracias.
Gracias, el show de Don Diablo. Vámonos, David.
Los Ángeles, Califastlán, 50,000 watts de potencia. Desde los estudios de la banda Elástica Radio, el show más cochino y lépero del barrio. El show de Don Diablo.